Now that we've discussed how to create black and white images or grayscale images, I want to show you some techniques for creating what's referred to as duotones or duotone effects. So in other words, what that means is images that are made up of just two colors, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and open up our next project file. So go ahead and choose File, Open, or double click on your gray background if you like. Head into your project files folder and look for a file called duotone.jpg. Go ahead and pop that fella open. Now, Photoshop actually has sort of an official duotone command, which I suppose I should show you here first. That's probably where I should start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head to the image menu first, and then down to mode. And right now, this guy is a full color image, obviously. He's an RGB image. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert him to grayscale. I'm going to pull out all of his color. So in this warning that you get, go ahead and click on discard. Of course, now we're left with a black and white photo. And then now what I want to do is I want to apply a color, a solid color over top of this image. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the image menu, back down to mode, and then this time I'm going to choose duotone. Go ahead and do the same here. Now, we're brought into the duotone options dialog box, but as you can see, nothing's really happened inside our photo down inside Photoshop. That's because right now the type menu is set to monotone and the color is set to black. So we just have a single color, or a single ink, if you will, being used inside our image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my type menu from monotone to duotone. And, as a quick side note, note that you also have tritone and quad tone as well. You can really do some funky things here, but I'm going to stick with duotone. Go ahead and choose duotone. We're now given a second color or a second ink row here, if you will, and there's a white color swatch. Go ahead and single click on that. And what happens here is we're brought into the color library dialog box where we can go and choose a solid color. Now, it brings me into the Pantone solid coded library. We talked about Pantone colors, Pantone libraries briefly earlier on when we were messing around with color swatches. So what I could do here is I could go and choose the Pantone solid coded, the default. I could go solid matte or process uncoded, process coded, and so on, right? So I can go and choose the color library that I want to work inside. I'm going to leave the default for this exercise. And then from there, what I would do is I would go and choose a color that I actually want to go and apply to my image. And as you can see, as I'm choosing the color here, the image down inside Photoshop is actually updating. Now, what I can do here is I can use this center vertical slider to navigate through the current Pantone library. So maybe I want to head down into the Pantone 300s. Remember I mentioned earlier that Pantone inks are all numbered? Well, oftentimes I'll know the exact number that I'm after, right? So maybe because this is a military photo, I want to head into sort of the olive colors, kind of that, that olive drab kind of thing, right? I could certainly do that, or maybe back up into the different shades of green that I have here. Really whatever I want, right? And that's pretty cool. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. That brings me back into the Duotone Options dialog box. And then from this point, what I can do is I can click on this curve here. Go ahead and click on that guy. That brings you into the duotone curve. And now what I can do is mess around with this curve here. If you've ever used Photoshop's curves dialog box, this works exactly the same way. So I can affect essentially the highlights, the shadows, and the midtones, right? So shadows are here on the right, and the highlights are here on the left. And of course, the midtones are in the middle there. So I can sit there and fiddle around and goof around and have some fun there, get it looking the way I want. And then when I'm happy, click on OK. And then click OK one more time to lock in those changes. Now, the important thing to remember is that you are not inside a full color image. You're not inside a black and white image. You're inside a duotone image now. This is the new color mode that we're inside. And I mention this because you might want to be careful at this point. If you're going to send this image out for commercial reproduction, just be sure that you know what you're doing here. All right, so there you go. That's kind of a first look anyway at duotone effects. I want to show you a couple of other techniques for creating some duotone effects here in Photoshop, and we'll do that next.